News host skeptical about Donald Trump's so-called tariff win this week. It comes amid polling that shows Americans are putting off or reconsidering major life decisions and events due to the anxiety they feel over Donald Trump's handling of the economy. 75% of people in America say they're putting off buying a house because of the Trump economy. 65% say they're delaying having children, and 60% are putting off getting married because of Donald Trump's economy. Joining our conversation is publisher of The Bulwark, host of the Focus Group podcast, Sarah Longwell. Claire is with us as well. Sarah, what are you seeing and what do you feel is coming?
Well, I've been hearing for a long time now, and this goes back years into the Biden administration. The cost of goods was the number one thing that voters cared about. The reason that they elected Donald Trump was because they felt that their grocery prices were too high, their housing costs were too high. And because we were digging out from the pandemic for the entirety of the Biden administration and we had inflation, even as the macroeconomy was improving, voters, especially those at the lower end of the income scale, weren't feeling it. And so Donald Trump had one job. His one job was to come in and lower prices. And here's the thing that he did when he was campaigning. He lied to people. And he said, I'm going to lower grocery prices on day one, right? He just made promises he couldn't keep. And so voters in the focus groups that I conduct multiple every week, the number one concern you hear from Trump voters is that the costs aren't going down for them, that, in fact, things are getting more expensive. They have a ton of anxiety about the tariffs, and many of them are doing exactly what you just played in that clip, which is they say things like, I'm putting off buying a car because I'm worried about tariffs. I was in the market for a car, but now I'm not doing it. And so that uncertainty is still there, even as Donald Trump is sort of rolling things back. And so there's no way, look, Donald Trump is able to message around things like his corruption, right? He goes on offense, he creates scandal after scandal. Voters have a tough time locking in on one thing. And they kind of trust, oh, he's a businessman or whatever. But when they feel the negative personal consequences of the economy, when the economy is down, when inflation is up, all of those things, you can't message around that, right? You just can't spin. Donald Trump can't bluster his way or sort of beast mode his way through that issue. And this is why when you were sort of asking David Frum, okay, well, what do you do about it? How do you make people care? And the number one way is to talk about it all the time. And this is where offense comes in. This is where Democrats need to be on offense all day long about the things that Trump is doing that are going to cause people economic pain. Because if they do that, they put a knife right through the central mythology of Donald Trump, which is that he's some vaunted businessman who's going to make, 12-dimensional chess negotiating deals, that's going to be in their benefit. When they don't feel the benefit, then they're willing to listen to you.
It does feel like the first Trump chapter that he can't spin his way out of. Is that your assessment?
Yeah, I mean, look, like I said, I think there's a lot of things he will and can spin his way out of. We were just asking people about some of this corruption that we're seeing, the $400 million jet from Qatar. And the fact is that stuff with voters, his voters particularly, it doesn't penetrate as much. It penetrates for Democratic voters and some independent voters, but not for his people. But the coalition, and I know you guys were discussing this a little bit before, but it bears repeating that the new makeup of the Republican Party, a majority of them are people who make under $100,000 a year. His voters shop at Walmart and they will notice the price increases. And so that is the area where you now have the ability to say, hey, he's failing you. He lied to you. He's not good at business. He's not good at negotiating. He's getting owned by China right now. And it feels like anything Democrats are talking about that isn't that and I think you can tack a lot of issues onto that. Come on. He is giving tax cuts to his rich friends while you pay more at Walmart. I mean, that is where you reach people.
Sarah, I'm curious, when you're doing these focus groups, is there any blowback on the congressional Republicans yet at all for not speaking up and stressing they could stop these tariffs if they wanted to, either on the corruption front or the costs of goods? Are you seeing any kind of weakening of the Republicans in Congress, because obviously the midterms are going to loom large here in about 10 minutes for all of this stuff. And I'm curious what the folks are saying about the people in Congress.
You know, Congress doesn't get a lot of airtime. There's just the focus on especially the procedural machinations, the things that are in Punchbowl, the things all of us who are sort of professional political consumers engage with. These voters are not tapped into that. They are tapped into things that have an impact on their life or things that they sort of find culturally fun to talk about, like, I don't know, trans bathrooms. But in terms of how they think about Congress, I mean, the fact is most Republican voters want Republicans in Congress to do exactly what they're doing, which is just listen to Donald Trump. And so there's not a real sense of, boy, I demand somebody stop him. And in fact, for a lot of Trump voters, you know, I've heard two different sets of things. And a lot of times it depends on what their income is. Because for people at higher ends of the income scale, they just want you to trust Trump. And maybe they think it's because we're going to remake American manufacturing. That's what it's going to take to make, America great again. Or they think we're going to use it to pay down the debt, or it's all a negotiating ploy and just trust Trump. Then there's the other set of voters that you hear from, and they don't really know why things are happening the way that they are. They just know their prices aren't going down. And they know that Trump promised that they would, and that he was a businessman and it mattered. Like that was the central promise. And so those voters aren't saying, hey, what is Congress doing about this? They're saying, why isn't Trump doing the thing that he promised he would do? And I'm worried it's going to get worse because of these tariffs.
While we have you, we do want to get your best advice on what that